Hello, Goldilocks here, aka Carrie, or maybe it should be Carrie, aka Goldilocks. Whatever, I just finished Shadows of Self. Technically, I finished it a few days ago, but I haven't been able to sit down and make a video, and I've been feeling kind of terrible, but I finally have some... But I finally have some antibiotics and I'm starting to feel better. So here we go, and I'm going to try to make this book video, not book review, but book video, better than my previous one where I basically didn't give enough information. I don't feel like. We're gonna do a spoiler-free section here, but I will be talking about spoilers at the end. So yeah. Also, I finished this book. I'm not sure if I'm going to go to the third book. So if you have a book recommendation for me, leave it in the comments. I need a book. I need to stop listening to podcasts. Like, I need a book. I need something. I need a book in my life. Alright, so Shadows of Self is by Brandon Sanderson. It is technically the fifth book in the Mistborn series, but the first three books is Era 1, and so this is part of Era 2, so it's like 300 years after Era 1, and it's the second book if you count it that way. So fifth book of the Mistborn series, or you can say second book in Era 2 of the Mistborn series. I read it on NLS Bard on the app, or I guess you could get it on Audible as well. And it was read by Michael Kramer. Love Michael Kramer. For once, I read at 1.25x instead of like really fast like I usually do. It took me longer to read this book. First, I'm practicing the whole self-control, but also, I don't know, I didn't have as much motivation to read this book. I don't even remember what I gave the previous book, but Alloy of Law, and it wasn't even that long ago. But this one, I am going to rate it a 3.5 out of 10. I meant 3.5 out of 5. Out of 5. It's interesting. Everybody was telling me as you progress in Era 2, the better it is. When I said everybody here, I was talking about YouTube and Reddit. And I can see kind of why. But I went into the fourth book, or the first book in Era 2, Alloy of Law, the book right before this one, kind of not knowing what to expect at all, hoping that it was better than Era 1 because I don't like Era 1, and I really enjoyed it because of how kind of lighthearted-ish, well, it's not exactly lighthearted since, the beginning is basically like, this person dies, my life is sad, but like, it's a lot more lighthearted than Era 1, where the whole world is ashes and terrible. So, basically, in this world, you have the magic system that Brandon Sanderson is known for. I actually don't mind the magic system in Mistborn. There are some people who don't like Mistborn, that don't like the magic system, but it works by metals. You can consume metals, and it gives you different powers, but you have to have the ability to control that power. So there are Mistborn who can do all of them, and then there are Mistings, or just like regular Elementers, I guess you call it Elemancy, like the using metals for these powers, this set of powers. Anyway, usually people can only use one particular metal, which is associated with one power. That's really confusing. Let's try this. The main character, Waxilium, or Wax, he can use steel. So he can consume steel, and then he can push on things. He can push on anything that has metal, and he can kind of fly, sort of, by pushing at an angle on metal stuff. Since they're in a city, there's a whole bunch of metal, right? And usually somebody could only have like that one power. He's considered what you call a coin shot because he can use steel and push on things. There's like lurchers that can use what? I don't remember what metal, and then they can pull on things and pull on metal. There are people who can use tin and they get like enhanced senses, etc., etc. Usually somebody only has one of these powers, but in this case, Wax is twin-born, and he has one elementic power and one ferrochemical power. And the ferrochemical power is where you can store an attribute. So he can store weight, and you can so one day you can like be half your weight and store like that half weight into these what they call metal mines, and you can store that in metal, and later you can use however much weight that you've stored. Hopefully that is a half decent explanation. But anyway, the plot of the story is another kind of, feels like Western, starting kind of the Industrial Revolution, kind of, because they have cars, right? And it's kind of like this mystery. The governor is in danger, like people are getting killed. You have to figure out what's going on. Waxilium does. It's not what I expected. It kind of starts... Don't mind the screaming in the background. My son is playing Nintendo or something. I don't know what problem he's having. At first, it feels a little bit like the previous one, but then it just starts feeling more like the first era, which, again, I wasn't too fond of. It starts, like, widening. The scope of the story starts widening. And I'm not so sure I feel that great about it, but like the worst part for me is really the ending. I kind of knew where it was going, which is weird because I kind of feel like I'm an oblivious reader a lot of the time, and I just like go along for the ride and like, oh my goodness, what happened? I can't believe he had like this huge twist that I could not see, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I kind of know what's been happening all this time. Like my suspicion was correct, and I guess that kind of blew it for me. That's why it's like a 3.5. And then the ending was just kind of really sad. I was really sad. I don't know, there's like sad books out there, right? I mean, I've read Game of Thrones and what do you call it? I can't remember. What do you call it? A grim dark. Joseph, what's the yelling about? I've read Grim Dark. I don't know why this just hit differently. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But I gave it a 3.5. It's still good. I don't regret reading it. I'm still happy that I read it because I do want to read the Mistborn, just because like it's part of Brandon Sanderson's larger like Cosmere, and you don't need to know anything about the Cosmere. It's an interconnected like universe for like a bunch of his books, but you don't need to know any of that to like appreciate the story. It just wasn't for me. I don't know. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. Yeah. For example, Way of Kings, Stormlight. Okay, this is a spoiler. You know the end? It was just so epic. And even Words of Radiance, it was just so epic. And then like Oathbringer, it was just massively epic Dalinar. This, okay, I guess this is, like, kind of, sort of spoilers for all of them. For all of the Stormlight archives. And it's just like, oh my gosh, that blew my mind. I guess it's kind of a spoiler, non-spoiler. Didn't expect that. But it's not necessarily about its epicness. I don't know if that's the right word. Because Trust of the Emerald Sea, right? Like, it was just kind of a story of a girl, like, trying to save this guy. And the ending of that one is still, like, just hit me really hard. And the ending on this one just didn't hit me. It just didn't hit me, and I wanted to be hit. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. I don't know. I'm still sick here. Now, spoiler warnings now. Let's move on to spoiler warnings for Shadows of Self, because that's what we're talking about here today. Okay, alright, let me have a rant here. Like, okay, end of the previous book, Alloy of Law, right? Like, Harmony starts talking to Wax, right? Okay, great. Like, but it's like this kind of low-key conversation thing, at least for me. And then all of a sudden, it like goes really hard with all this Harmony stuff, like Kandra. I'm like, oh yeah, Kandra. I didn't think about them since Era 1. Like, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know. The fact that the Kandra was Lessie. Oh, I knew that it was the governor. Like, I suspected it has to be the governor. It's the governor, isn't it? Like, that's who the Kandra is. It's the governor, totally. Like, I don't know. I suspected that. But then when it was Lessie, it was Lessie. And I was just like, what? This doesn't make sense. Like, why? How did Lessie fall in love with Wax? It doesn't make sense to me. It's a Kandra. It's like 1,000,000 years old or whatever. Like, oh, I don't understand. I don't get it. No. Like, I understand. Like, it feels like a twist that doesn't make sense. It's like, oh, what if it was Lessie all along? Ha, I got him. Like, no, this doesn't make sense to me. I don't, no. Not buying it. There should have been flashbacks that kind of pointed to it. More obvious flashbacks. If there are, I didn't see them. I didn't hear them. No. I don't buy it. I just don't buy that it was Lessie. I also don't like Harmony. I also just find myself kind of really annoyed with Wax. I still like Maracy. And I'm just not happy. I'm not happy. And like, you know, at the end, like Steris, Wax, like put his shoulder on Steris and cried, and it's just like, okay, you're really sad. Okay, Steris is your fiance, but like, I don't buy that either. I feel like everybody on Reddit who was talking about Wax and Steris, they lied to me. I'm disappointed. I don't buy their relationship, Wax and Steris. Yeah, they're engaged to be married and they're fianced. They're engaged. Okay, fine. Arranged marriage. Okay. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, that's it for my rant. That's about all I've got to say on this. Will I be reading book 3? Will I be reading book 4? I probably will. Because I want to know what happens. Just like that, right? But like, Do I want to read it now? I will wait a while. I don't know what book to read. Yeah. If you have a book in mind, let me know. I really need a good book to get into. Yeah, I think that's it for now. EM Goldilocks signing off.